in this video, I'm going to focus on internal communications. I'll talk about what that is. I will talk about the different kind of responsibilities you might have in an internal communications role, and hopefully this will help you figure out if maybe this is the job for you or not. I'm Joanna. I work as a communications consultant. I work with brands and organizations all over the world to help them communicate more effectively with their employees. And before I set up my own consulting business, I worked for more than a decade inside organizations in a variety of communication roles. So I got a question recently from a subscriber asking if I could share a little bit more about what it's actually like to work in communications, because they're interested in maybe working in communications, but they're not really sure if it's right for them or not. If you're curious about what it's like to work in a communications role, if you're looking for some insider insights into the types of jobs that you could be doing, or whether this is potentially a career path you want to pursue, I hope you find this video really helpful. So let's start by talking about what the hell is internal communications, because I know most people have never heard of it. If I meet a friend I haven't seen for a while and they say, "Oh, what do you do?" and I say, "I work in internal communications," they get this look of like, I don't know what that is. So internal communications is a branch of the public relations industry, basically working on communicating inside an organization with employees. So when you work in internal communications, you're not doing big campaigns for customers, you're not pitching to the media, you're not making press releases for newspapers, you are just communicating inside the organization with employees. So that's why it's called internal communications. You will also hear it called employee communications, and sometimes people will shorten it down to internal comms. So internal communications, it's about sharing information inside an organization, but it's about much more than that. There's an author called Bill Quirk, and he said that internal communications is about what he calls establishing a shared understanding within an organization. So what you're trying to do to all employees is to explain what the business is all about, what the strategy is all about, what's important to focus on right now, really helping employees to connect to the purpose of the organization and to feel like the work that they're doing every day is actually contributing to the success of the organization. Now, there are a million billion ways to do this, but that's the essence of what you're trying to achieve as an internal communicator. And a big part of the job can sometimes be taking stuff that's quite complicated, potentially quite boring, like a business strategy that's very rich in detail and rich in information, and translating that into a way where different people in the organization can make sense of it, can understand it in the same way, and know what they need to do to take action on it. So in terms of what internal communications is not, it's not an internal postal service. So you're not just taking messages from one department and delivering them to another, but rather you are almost that broker of understanding, that you are helping people to connect to the bigger picture of the business. And this is really exciting because this is really valuable to the company. If you can get everybody aligned and understanding what's important, that will lead to huge business results. And also in terms of what internal communications, it's not just doing social events or happy hours or pizza Fridays. It's a lot more than that. It's not this fluffy, soft industry. It's actually a really critical business function in any organization. And internal communications is not the same as employee engagement. They are quite closely linked, but they're not the same thing. If you want me to make a video about the difference between those two, drop me a comment down below and I can do that for you. So moving on to talk about my experience a little bit. So I actually didn't study communications in university. I don't have a communications degree. I actually studied sociology. And I studied sociology here in Trinity College, Dublin, because I was so fascinated by people and culture and cultural norms and how groups of people interact with each other. So I never had any great plans for working in communications, but I definitely from early on had a lot of the technical skills that I would need to be a communicator. So I was always a really good writer. I was a voracious reader from a child. I was quite good at telling a story, and I was quite good at explaining things that were potentially difficult to explain. So for me, how I got started in internal communications, I remember many years ago, I was working in an organization that was bringing in a new strategy for the business. And this strategy was quite different to what had come before. It was quite a departure for how the organization usually worked. So it was really important that all the employees understood it. They knew where the organization was going. They knew what they had to do to move in that direction. But the way that that new strategy was communicated, I'll never forget. It was such a pivotal moment for me. It was like a 50-60 page document, this massive PDF, and the CEO just emailed it out to everybody and said, here's the new strategy, off you go. And of course, nobody read it, and the people that did read it got bogged down in the detail or didn't really understand it. And there was no effort made to really explain, what is it and what does it mean for me? Like, why should I care? And I remember in that moment thinking, I can help you with this. I can absolutely help you take this strategy and turn it into meaningful messages and communications that resonate with people and that they will understand. For me, my internal communications career, I've worked in lots of different industries and lots of different sectors. So I started in the charity sector, in non-for-profits, and then I moved into financial services, then I went into policing, and then I went into tech. So the really great thing about working in internal communications is you can really work in any type of industry. Every single organization in the world communicates internally, and every organization needs their employees to understand what the strategy is, what we need to do, what's important to this company, what behaviors are expected of employees. They need good communications to achieve that. So when I worked in junior roles in internal communications, the types of work that I would be doing, lots of writing. So you might be writing articles for an internal newsletter about things that have happened, about updates from the leaders, about events that are coming up that employees can attend, about training seminars, anything at all. You would also be editing, say, articles that other people have written and they've sent in. You could be creating content for the intranet. When you're in junior roles, it's very tactical. You're doing a lot of things, but you're doing quite a wide variety of things. So you might be editing, proofreading, writing, you might be doing some graphic design in Canva, you might be filming some videos, you might be running events, you might be running logistics for events. And that's one of the things actually that I quite like about this job, is that there's a lot of variety. Potentially every day is different. You'll never get bored. So one day you might be in a workshop about the company values and then figuring out the best way to communicate that. The next day you might be preparing a PowerPoint deck for the CEO who's going to do an all-staff meeting. The next day you might be in a planning committee for a big event that's coming up. If you enjoy things like writing and creating things and generally being creative of how can I explain this in an interesting way and get people's attention, and you like being very hands-on and making stuff and doing stuff, this could be a really good job for you. So that's the kind of work I would have done when I started off in quite junior roles. As I moved up the ranks and became more senior, the work I did changed quite a lot. For example, in 2019, I took up the role as head of internal communications with the Irish National Police Force. It was the first head of internal communications they'd ever had, and I had the absolute pleasure and privilege of making their first internal communication strategy for the organisation. So when you get to that level where you're head of a department or you're the director, you're not going to be as involved in the tactical work, in the doing of the work. You won't be writing the articles for the newsletter, creating SharePoint pages for the intranet, making PowerPoint decks. What you're going to be doing instead is you're going to be going up a level. You'll be getting out of the weeds and you'll be focused on more strategic work. So you might be building a strategy. You'll spend a lot of time advising other leaders and helping them to communicate well rather than just creating content. You'll also spend a lot more time thinking about measurement and evaluation, not just creating content and sending it out, but actually assessing the effectiveness and the impact of your communications. What was the point of that thing that we sent? Did it land? Did people do what we wanted them to do? And what you'll be trying to do is to move the needle on your strategy, and you'll be trying to demonstrate the difference that you have made to the business, really aligned to the business goals. So when you get into that more senior space, you're going to spend a lot less time on tactics and writing and technical skills like that. You will spend a lot more time having conversations and coaching people and doing that big picture work instead. Now, depending on the size of the company you're joining and depending on the level of investment they're willing to make in internal comms, you might be working in a team of 10, you might be working in a team of 5. Quite often people do communications in a team of 1, which is really really hard. If you can avoid it, please do. It's really hard. And the reason I say that is because when you're in a team of one, the expectation is that you're going to do the tactical work of the junior role, but also the strategic work of a senior role, somehow all at the same time. Make it make sense. Now, in saying that, maybe you're joining a company where they don't yet have an internal communications team. You are the first hire for internal communications. So if you're interviewing for a job like that, I would be asking the hiring manager, like, what are your plans for the future? Will I have scope to hire a team? What kind of budget will I have available? So you can get a sense early on, will you have to manage all of this by yourself? Or can you make a plan to build a team out over time? I've done that myself. It's really rewarding. I love doing that and I would recommend it. For me, I did those kind of jobs inside organizations for more than 10 years. And when I turned 40, it's quite a natural time to kind of stop and reflect and think about your life. What do I really want? And I began to think maybe I want to work for myself. Maybe it's a redhead thing, right? But I just don't like being told what to do and when to do it and how to do it. And by this stage of my career, I had won quite a lot of awards. I had a very good reputation in the communications industry. I had built up a pretty good following on LinkedIn, and I was starting to get people approaching me to say, you know, I really like how you think, I really like your work. Would you come into our organization as a consultant and help us with this problem that we have or this project that we have? So I always had to say no because I was working for a company, but then I began to think like, well, what if I actually just went out on my own and did my own thing? That's what I decided to do. I set up my own business. It's called The Curious Route, and that was in July of 2023. And now I do kind of two different types of work. So one type of work is I work with organizations. So I work with some of the biggest brands in the world to help them with something inside their organization to do with communication. That might be doing some consulting, like doing a full review of their communication channels or their system. It might be a workshop with some of their leaders. It might be training for their comms teams. That can look like lots of different things. And the other piece of work that I do is with individuals. So I work with people who are professional communicators all over the world. The most common way that I support individuals is through my membership community, the Curious Tribe. This is where individual communicators can work directly with me for 12 months. We do lots of training, we do group coaching, we do masterminds. We also just connect together, share experiences, share our pain and help each other with our problems. So this is really for communicators who are quite ambitious. They know that they can do more in their roles and they just want a bit of support and help to make more impact. And something else that I currently do now, which was never really in my master plan, but I really enjoy it, is teaching. This could be something that you could think of for your career if you're working in communications. So I teach with an educational institute here in Ireland. I teach a course on strategic internal communication. In terms of what I do for that, I design the course, I design all the modules, I create all the content, I run live classes for students, I do pre-recorded video lectures, I set the assignments, I grade the assignments. Like, I never really set out to be a teacher, but actually it makes total sense for me because I love explaining things. I think I'm pretty reasonably good at it. And I really like that feeling of when somebody comes back and says, oh, I took that piece of advice and I did this with it and I got this result and it worked out really well. Like, it's really rewarding. So teaching could definitely be something that you could explore if you're working in communications or if you have a degree in communications and you're thinking about what to do with it. So I hope this was useful. I hope it gives you a flavour of what it's like to work in communications, specifically internal communications. I know what it's like when you're just starting your career, you're not really sure what you want to do. So I hope this gives you a little bit of flavour of what this kind of work is like. Please let me know if you have any other questions about working in communications or really anything about communications. Drop me a comment below and I will answer all of the questions. If this video is useful to you, please subscribe to my channel. I will be creating regular content to help you with communications. Now, one thing I didn't cover in this video is all the stuff that I wish I knew back at the start of my career, before I took my first communications job. All the stuff that I wish somebody had told me sooner. So if you're interested in that, if that will help you, check out the next video.